Hey guys, I'm Aubrey and welcome to my channel. Now, have you ever gotten annoyed with a friend or a teammate because they didn't do something exactly the way you expected it to be done? Or what if someone else's happiness is making you unhappy? Or maybe you're like me, holding off on tasks until I have everything right and ready. But the good news is, I finally stopped hitting the snooze button and stopped getting ready and just hit start. But if you notice yourself in one of these categories, well, you might have perfectionistic tendencies, and it shows up in different forms for everyone. And perfectionism is not a mental illness, but a character trait that can lead to depression and anxiety and very unhealthy relationships with others. Because when we look at the definition of perfectionism, it's having impossibly high personal standards that aim for everything to appear perfect and appear correct. And another one states that perfectionism is any various belief that moral, social, or political perfection is attainable. So, can we see how perfectionism can lead to anxiety and conflict? I mean, it's all around us and also can be rooted in our upbringing. And sadly, it's not just common, but it's on the rise. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with striving to be our best or even producing high quality work, right? I mean, we want that, but it becomes toxic when we place too much emphasis on the outcome versus the process. So, if perfection is flawed, then what should we reach for? Try excellence and good enough. But, guys, there's a delicate line between perfection and excellence. Because when it comes to excellence, we're still working hard and we still have standards. But the difference is we're not attached to outcome. And so when things don't go our way, we can flex and bend. But also, I think a major difference between the two is how we feel. One is a sense of fear, and the other, a sense of feeling free. Because let's notice how we feel when we break down the three types of perfectionists and see how it ties into fear. I'll go first, which is self-oriented perfectionist. A self-oriented perfectionist usually ends up overthinking, feeling overwhelmed, and even being too hard on ourselves to the point of avoiding things we really want to do because of fear of making mistakes. This is a rigid, only one way thinking. And this is a very big one for me that I had to learn, and I'm continuing to really work on it. And so I try to do the opposite, which is feeling free to experiment, to see what works, to see what doesn't work. And I learned to be slow and steady versus always being ready. And if there are mistakes, which of course are inevitable, I try to just view them as opportunities to be creative in the process and to make sure that I celebrate those small wins as well as my failures. And if you stick around, I'll share some tips on what's helping me do this at the end of this video. And the opposite of this is an other-oriented perfectionist, where we view other people's mistakes as failures because they should be doing things precisely how we should be doing things, right? So we become so nitpicky, too demanding about every little detail. And so we start to create a fear in a judgmental environment at work and at home. So sometimes it's good to check in with ourselves, right? And see if people at work or people we're in a relationship with can freely approach us with their ideas and concerns. Or are we known as being tight-fisted? Because naturally, as humans, we want to make people happy. But what happens when people are fearful of our reactions? Well, people will start hiding things from us and be distant. So, by being flexible and showing true interest in people's happiness and growth, this creates a no judgment free zone. All right, and the last perfectionistic type is socially oriented. Now, this is when we fear other people judging us. Of course, there's nothing bad of just caring about what people think, but when we do it too much to appear perfect in our lifestyle, our family, and at work, well, we start to think that we're only good enough if others perceive us as good enough. And so we sacrifice our own happiness in appearance of perfection. But what would happen if we just freed ourselves from comparisons and expectations from others? How does that make you feel? I mean, I get it because as humans, we're naturally social creatures. We have a strong desire to belong to a community that accepts us. And so sometimes we conform, right? But the danger is when it does more damage than good. Like when we don't get someone's approval, then we worry. Oh no, my boss didn't say, good job, well done. Or I didn't get a lot of likes on my post this week. It must be me. I'm just not good enough. But is that really true? And do we have any proof that others are judging us or even thinking we're not good enough? You see, more often than not, our perceptions are not based on fact. So sometimes it's healthy to view things from an objective point of view. So, can we feel the difference between the two character traits or categories and notice where we can tweak our perspective? And so, when it comes to our jobs or where we work, it's hard to show up as a real human sometimes, right? But I'm truly inspired by this one company in England because not only do they encourage failure at work, but they celebrate it together. So, a part of their workplace culture, every month they have an event called the Church of Fail. Employees are gathered and invited to stand up in front of the crowd and confess their mistakes. Now, this might sound terrifying, but they confess small blunders to big mistakes, from being really annoyed with a client to losing company money. But the rule is that they must answer these 3 questions. What do you fail at? How did you cope with it? And what would you do differently? And well, after the confession, everyone applauses in celebration. And as a result of making failure socially acceptable, leaders are finding that workers were more courageous and creative. And I really love this because often work breeds egotism, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. It can really be more inclusive. By breaking the vicious cycle of perfectionism as a team, by humanizing it and normalizing failure at work. To me, I think they're really called the Church of Failing Forward. All right, guys, if you guys want to know more, I'll put a link in the description. And if you're getting value out of this, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to share and subscribe. But of course, no outcome attached. What about on a personal level? I mean, what can we do right now when perfectionism starts to creep up? Well, the first thing, we can start taking breaks. Specifically, I use the Pomodoro technique, which is 25 minutes of focused work separated by 5-minute breaks and repeat. It also helps if you have a physical timer right in front of you. I'll link in the description below which one I use. Because sometimes we have the tendency to just be so immersed in our work that we forget the big picture. And if you're like me, I get lost in the sauce because I'm just so into my work. So it's good to give your brain and your eyes a break. And when we return to our work with a fresh pair of eyes and clarity, we actually find ourselves more productive and more relaxed. The second is the 70% rule. Since it's not humanly possible to do a great job 100% of the time, how about 70% of the time? Now, I know for those who strive for an A++, 70 sounds uneasy, but that's why we need to start having flexible thinking here. We can use the other 30% and count that as experiences and lessons learned rather than calling them mistakes. This way, you'll keep moving and making progress. And my third is my favorite, self-compassion. Because remember the word enough? We'll use the word enough as a reply to perfection. Like when you feel like you're going 100 instead of 70, tell yourself, that's enough. Or when you feel like you need the world's validation, tell yourself, I'm enough. And when you don't feel satisfied, but you've done your best and you need to progress, tell yourself, that's good enough. And just let it go. So say it loud and proud with me, that's enough. I'm enough. That's good enough. And let go of perfectionism and say hello to excellence. Because in reality, the only thing that's truly perfect is a cat. Alright guys, try to use one of these tips and let us know if you have any tips. Thank you again for spending time with me. I'll add those links for you guys down below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, share, subscribe, and we'll see each other next time. Take care.